All right. Welcome to tonight's show. Hey, Red Life, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to the show tonight, guys. Everybody that's on, everybody that'll come on. We're going to kind of do a little talk. We're going to talk a little bit about the wall or the non-existence of the wall and give our thoughts and just kind of round table it. And hopefully you guys will join in and we can have some good, healthy discussion and we'll just go from there. This is our first video of the new year. Welcome to 2020. Happy 2020. Hope the year treats you all well. Jacob's with me tonight. Jonny, he's probably working, I would imagine. Hadn't heard from him yet. So we'll start, and if he joins in, great.
What's going on, everybody? We're excited for this little talk. We're just going to chat it up, talk about the wall.
Gotta get my chat hat on.
Shirt here. Had to put that up for everybody.
There you go.
Those are for all my commies out there. They know what that means.
Well, I don't, I guess.
Pinochet, man. I better be careful what I say. This is YouTube, so I better be careful. But yeah, just Augusto Pinochet. Free helicopter rides.
Right. I got you.
The political people on YouTube will know exactly what I'm talking about. Believe me, they're a very astute group.
Yeah. Well, right on. I guess the kids cleaned the yard. I guess you watched my video. You know, they did, and we did get the internet back on. Mama cut that off today. She was like, you know what? I'm tired of these kids not listening, and they were playing on their. One of them was on his computer, on his laptop, playing games and them live game thingies. I'm not a gamer, so I don't get it, but man, I'll spend hours on it. And she went and cut that internet, and all of a sudden they were all standing at attention by the kitchen. And they did go out and clean the yard, and she turned the internet back on. I was like, holy good Lord, thank you.
Wow. What will we do if the grid goes down? What shall we do?
Oh, I know. Well, hell, we'll go back to doing what we did when I grew up. You actually work in the yard and you do stuff, you know, you get outside.
Where's the grid at so I can bazooka RPG the damn thing, man?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I threatened to cut this one all the time for that very reason.
Yeah.
I threatened to do it. Mama went and did it. She cut it right off. But it worked.
Yeah, man.
It worked. They went out and got the backyard all cleaned up and picked up dog poop. And here we are. So, yes, sir. Oh, goodness. Well, tonight we're going to talk a little bit about, well, the wall. Why don't we have a wall? We're supposed to have a wall, right? That was one of the promises. We're going into year 4 of President Trump's presidency, and we don't have a wall. Well, yeah. He's not doing what he said. What the hell? What's your thoughts on it, Jacob?
So my thoughts on it. Okay, so let me give everyone an idea. So if you guys are coming from Europe, the UK, obviously if you're in the UK or anywhere in the world, usually there's geographic barriers to somebody just coming over to your country, okay? The United States, we've been a developed country, as you guys already know. We border a third world country. Now, I will say Mexico and Central America, they are developing. They're the up and coming countries. But when you don't have a wall, it's a 1,954-mile border we share with our southern neighbors. And when you don't have an immigration system that enforces it on the books, I mean, you can write a law that doesn't enforce immigration. Jobs are going to bring people up here in generous welfare systems. So you have to have some kind of force to stop that, because otherwise, think of it like your guys' house. I use the front door analogy. If you don't have a front door in your house, how can you secure your house? I mean, you can have guns in your house. You can have, many members that guard the front door, but you can't secure your door if you don't have a front door. So if anyone ever tells you, oh, you don't need a wall, you know what? If the two countries are compatible, like in Europe, like, Belgium, Luxembourg, France, and Germany, how they kind of border one another, there's not a lot of difference in the type of, there is some distinct differences, but there's not a lot of difference in the population, but there's a tremendous difference in culture between Central Americans and USA Americans. I mean, there's a lot of differences culturally, a lot of differences in how our governments are run, because let's face it, they were established by the Spanish. I think it was the civil. No, civil law. Whereas the British colonized countries were founded by the common law system. So there's not just in the population biology wise, there's big differences in how the countries came about in their history. So you're going to have differences in values. So it makes sense. If you have anything of value, think of your house as a valuable place where you store goods. If you have a house full of nice things, you're going to want to secure it in some way. It's not that you hate the people outside, it's that you love what's inside and you want to protect it. And that's what the purpose of a wall is. So if you guys hear this has been a contested issue worldwide. Anybody who's in politics knows this has been a worldwide issue having this wall. And that's the reason why. It's not that the United States, we hate our southern neighbors. It's that we just want to protect the good stuff that's inside from people who might have dissident aims at that. Let me just get an article we can kick it off with. But a big impetus.
While you're doing that, I'm going to comment.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just going to make a comment.
Yeah,
it's like
go for it,
the people who oppose the wall. So these politicians that are opposing the wall, I'm going to go with the politicians for right now, that are opposing the wall. It's kind of funny because if you go look at their mansions that they live in, they have big walls around them. You know what else they oppose? They oppose our guns. And guess what they have?
They have
guns. Those big ass walls. They have guys with guns that go with them where they go, and they go places with them so that somebody doesn't get them. They are protected by walls and guns, but they're the biggest opponent or whatever. They propose it or oppose it. There we go. That's where they oppose it the most and the biggest, but yet they're hypocrites.
I mean, look at Nancy Pelosi. I'm a Niner fan. For those of you guys who watch NFL football in America, I've been a 49er fan since I was a kid. Nancy Pelosi was at that Niner game on Sunday night last week. She had armed, well, I don't know if they were armed, but she had security all around her. And I'm like, these people are hypocrites, man. They want mass immigration for thee, but not for me. I want guns for me, but not for thee. So they're showing their elitist attitudes to the extreme, and they're not even hiding anything anymore. So this article, I wanted to give everyone, this is a recent article from Market Watch. People like me, I love Market Watch. It's a great site. Lobbying, guys, is a fancy name for money, big donations for creating legislation and pushing things through. Special interest. Actually, that's a better way. A fancy name for lobbying, special interest, okay? And it's near record levels in the Trump administration. Why? There is big money. And this is what the whole reason of immigration is, guys. The reason why immigration is such a contested issue in the United States, because there's a lot of money to be made behind this. Because, if you're of the globalist type, you can, instead of making more money by having more innovative products, you can instead, on the downward pressure, you can depress wages, and you can still make the same profit margin without having to innovate your products and create better products. So one way these big companies and big global multinational corporations, what they do is they use labor as a way. They use labor as a way of creating more competition and depressing wages, because you guys all know, when you have more applicants for a job and they're pretty similar in terms of what you need, you're going to go to the lowest cost provider. And that's generally people from the third world. And I'd say Central America. Like, let's say if you're a manufacturer, construction company, or you're a farmer, whatever, you're going to go to the lowest cost provider. And generally, like I said, based on differences of culture, differences of values and beliefs, more the Anglo-Germanic, you could say the British type, that came over here. We like to have houses. We're individualists. We like to have our own space, our own. Whereas a lot of Central Americans are collectivists, where they like to live in close quarters with one another. So they don't mind sharing a house of 6 to 8 people, parking their cars all along. Whereas Anglo-Germanic people like myself, we like our space. We like our property. We like having our independence of thought. And what happens when you have 6 people that can all shack in a house? Well, that means they have lower bills and they don't need to make as much. So it's easy for them to go they can go into, let's say, a construction job and they can ask for $10 an hour and pretty much get it. Whereas the other guy who was wanting 15, now he has to compete with 10, and he just gets out of the industry altogether because he's like, the hell with this. I ain't gonna work for $10 an hour. So anyway, on both sides, the Democrats, the liberal left, I should say the globalist left, the Marxist left, you could even say, they're for open borders because of political power. They want to empower these people politically, whereas the right, they offer cheaper labor. I would call them the patriotic nationalist right. They're more concerned about the big donors, the big money people, that is. They're concerned about cheap labor. That's why they want to have more and more competition. They want to bring in as many immigrants as possible, start them off with visas, but then naturalize them as they come here more and more. So, yeah. So anyway, it creates a situation where if you are of the conservative type, like myself and John and Jonny are, we're kind of screwed because we're getting our wages depressed and we're losing political power. So it's a lose-lose for people like us.
You got a comment there.
Yeah, sure.
Look back at the history of the Bible. Israel had and has walls. I have no issue with the wall. I feel we need to also do something to help stop the corruption.
Oh man, he's so right. He's so right. Look at the lobbying. Lobbying, Red Life, is almost equivalent to corruption. The more lobbying you get, the more corruption you get. Like the two go hand in hand. And he's right. We sent 38 billion to Israel. I don't remember the exact year it was. We sent 38 billion to Israel to help them build their wall. And it's going to cost us about 10 for ours. And you have Americans in our own country saying 10 billion is too much. That's a waste of money. Whereas we spent 38 billion for their wall. American taxpayer money.
The wall isn't the whole answer either. I mean, he said, the corruption we need to get control of that. And I think that President Trump is working on that. He keeps talking about draining the swamp, and we're trying to get that to be a better situation for the American people, because right now we are outweighed of people that's against the American freedom, our freedoms. And we need to get that number reversed back to where the people who believe in our freedom and stand for America and Americans, the American people first, we need to get back to that. We need to get rid of that corruption, and we need to get back to the basics, back to where we came from, where we started. And it may take what it took to get us there in the first place to get us back to there. Yeah, we got a lot of tensions rising right now. That's a whole different talk. I'm not going to go into it too much, but with this whole Iran, the stuff going on in Iran and stuff, and we have been allowing immigrants to come in, and we now have sleeper cells around, which gives them a stronghold on our own turf. Why do we allow that? I don't get it. I don't get that.
Well, I think part of the answer to that, John, is we've had such a breakdown in how civics are taught in this country. Now, if you go to the average, I would say 20-something in this country and ask them about basic questions in civic. What is the House of Representatives? What is the Senate? How does a law get created? What is the function of the judiciary? What is the president? Effectively, what is the president? What powers they have? You will have an amazing level of ignorance come out of people's mouth. They have zero. They have, I don't want to say zero, but they have near zero understanding of history of how we got to this point, like how people apply the 14th Amendment. That's basically how birthright citizenship became a thing. Trump wants to get rid of that. And that's a big part of our immigration loophole is birthright citizenship. And if you go back to the actual case, how it was ruled was, or the intention of the 14th Amendment rather was the federal government at the time wanted to make sure the freed slaves, the Southerners couldn't take away their rights, given their state rights. So they made it to where all people born in the United States at that time they were American citizens fully, to prevent the states from taking away their rights. But that got later misinterpreted by an activist leftist judge as anybody for any reason, if you're born here, you're a citizen, which is a grotesque misinterpretation of what the intention was behind that. And that goes to the importance of judges. Judges have been a big, big problem with enforcing immigration because they've been, it's usually luck of the draw what case ends up in what court. They'll apply a situation from years ago and they'll act like, well, that's the normal way of doing things. And it's not. Like, we have a distinct law. A sovereign nation is like your house. You have whatever code of conduct you guys want to run in your house. That's up to you. This is your property. You're responsible for it. But the moment you're responsible for something, but you have no control, that's tyranny. That's slavery. If you have responsibility without control, that's slavery. That's tyranny. That's slavery. And that's what kind of the United States is turning into. We're responsible for all these people that end up here, but we have no control in terms of what we can do with these people. And part of it's propaganda in terms of how the news media, the entertainers, and it's a whole multifaceted thing where in the education systems, where if someone looks different than you can't make them feel uncomfortable that you're a racist. But if you actually go to our history and how we handle these type of disputes, you go off of values and alignment with the law. And if you bring in massive amounts of people and they don't assimilate, they don't integrate into society, and they have they have dissident aims, or they just have a differing value system that's antithetical to the United States in our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, you're going to have some upcoming battles, because once that small group gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and they start to demographically displace the host, I mean, you're setting up a perfect situation for civil war. I mean, or the majority group just gives in to the new demographically replaced group. I mean, it comes down to that terms, because when this small group grows into a big group, there becomes no political solution, because one group can just outvote one another. Because most people know these Anglo-Germanic indigenous Europeans in the United States, we vote pretty much 65-35. 65% generally vote about Republican, conservative, where 35% vote liberal. But once you introduce a new population and they don't have the shared values, it tilts bad. And then with an electoral college system like we have, all it takes is a few key states. That's the whole election. I mean, that's how our systems work, and they're gaming the system. They're using immigration to change the country. I actually wrote this down. They're trying to use easy amnesty to transform the nation's politics over the long term. And that's what their goal's been with this ever since the 86 amnesty that Reagan passed.
I'm going to pop up a couple of comments. Got
Sure.
one on Facebook. Sure. It's getting old. I want to address it real quick because we're kind of past it. I'll keep it clean so that we don't get ourselves in trouble. But the Democratic Party is a joke. They wanted armed guards for them, but not law-abiding citizens. So we kind of talked about this before we started the show, and everything. I mean, we all focus on the Democratic Party and their corruption and then all that stuff. Both parties are corrupt as far as I'm concerned. It's not just Democrats. They lead the way. They do. They very much lead the way, in my opinion. But the whole thing is a mess right now. Yeah, I mean, we have Republicans that claim they're Republicans that don't vote Republican. State of Utah got one of them stupid sons of beasts. So, the party system isn't working like it did back when Grandma and Grandpa was a Republican or a Democrat. And Jonny has talked to this from his family and how the changes, because he grew up on a different side of the fence than I did. He grew up as a Democrat and whatnot, and his family was Democrat. And now none of them follow the Democratic ways anymore because it's gotten out of control. And the corruption and
absolutely
said it, the corruption, it's all corrupt, and that corruption has got to be addressed, and we've got to do something about it.
Well, corruption is linked directly to growth of government. Anytime you have a government that's small, you can control it. And that is and I hate to say this, guys, but it's the honest truth. That is a European value of small controlled government. Everywhere in the world, they got big government. If it's China, if it's in African countries, Southeast Asian countries, if it's Latin America, that is a unique European indigenous value, is small government. And when the government gets big, that's when you see a lot of corruption, because the people have no ability to change it and they lose control of the government. Let's read this comment right here. You can't stop people from coming here. That's why the country was founded. The problem is they need to be legal, pay taxes, be a part of the economy, and not a drain on it. Okay, so Red Light, thank you very much. Okay, I want to address this right now because you brought up an excellent point that cuts through the heart of this, okay? We can't stop people from coming here, but here's what we can do.
We don't
can
want
create
to.
Laws. Exactly, and that's the thing.
Not the legal ones.
There's actually a book I want to recommend to you, man. I'm glad you brought this. This is such a central. It's called Vanishing Front. You can't even see it. Kind of. Yeah, there we go. Vanishing Frontiers. Okay.
Oh yeah.
It's the whole point of how do you assimilate these two radically different countries. Okay. How you do it is with skills. You have an alignment of values. Oh, my light's a little off here. You have an alignment of values. Just to answer Red Tube's question, there has to be an alignment of values. And yes, if they have antithetical values, we absolutely can stop them. That's what a U.S. military is for. If someone wants to charge into your country and tell you what to do, that is invasion. That is not immigration. But if they wish to immigrate here, they have to have an alignment of values, and there has to be some kind of sworn oath to those values. And anyway, in this book, what I recommended was what they offer. Mr. Seeley offers is if they have complementary economic skill sets, if they bring us engineers, doctors, scientists, chemists, physicists, registered nurses, if they bring us shortages in our economy, it's a win-win because they're not, the glut of low-skilled labor is not displacing our already glut of low-skilled labor. If they have complementary skill sets, it's a win-win. And if they have aligned values, we'll start seeing debates like if you guys remember when Nixon debated Kennedy, if you listen to their ideas, go back to that debate, there was very little difference between the two. There were some. Those were the traditional Democrats. There wasn't a lot of difference between Kennedy and Nixon. But now when you listen to Republicans debate Democrats, it's like, oh my God, one side wants the Green New Deal, open borders, and Medicare for all. Like, how do you even negotiate with such radical positions? You can't. And part of the corruption is we have to stop the flow of illegal, and even with the legal immigrants, and like you said, they have to pay taxes. We can't have this glut of low-skilled people constantly coming in, and then they have votes. Once they're citizens, their kids will all have votes. And let's face it, you lose a country that way. That's how you don't need bombs and tanks and planes to overthrow a country. You need wombs, welfare checks, and votes to overthrow a country now. And that's what's going to happen. I think Plato was the one that said democracy is the tyranny of the majority. And that's what's going to lead to, man.
This is a good time for this comment because it
Sure.
goes along with what you just said. So I'm going to pop it up there. They're using our school system to indoctrinate our kids to be socialists.
Yes, I mentioned that earlier.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's how you take over a country. You get a whole generation that hates the country, right?
Hey, Trotsky once said, give us the schools, we need nothing else. We can have Marxism anywhere in the world. Give us the schools, we need nothing else.
Yeah.
That's all.
I can't remember that other dude's name, but
Howard Zinn.
Zinn, same crap. All of his propaganda is in the school system. He sold it to the school districts or school systems and whatnot. Yeah, man. Here we go.
She's absolutely right. She's absolutely right. Term limits. Okay, now that's another point. When you have these rhinos like John McCain, Mitt Romney, Ted, this was a guy on the Democratic side, Ted Kennedy. Here's another rhino, the Orrin Hatch guy. Now, Orrin Hatch has supported Trump on something, so he's not as bad, but he's right. When you have guys like Orrin Hatch, you have guys like John McCain, when you have people that are there for a really long time, okay, they're going to take political favors from people, the lobbying. They're going to take special interests. They're going to take, and it's going to be antithetical to the best interest of the country because, once again, when the government grows, the people lose power. If the government's small, the people have all the power. So, to his point, the reason, he's absolutely right. But the thing is, the founders didn't set it up that way for the representatives and the senators. They only set it up that way for the president. They didn't set it up that way because they assumed, you could say their thinking's wrong. They assumed the people, the populace, they'll know and they'll be informed, and then they'll have the responsibility of voting out responsible people. But as we all know, that didn't work because the assumption's based on you have an informed public and they're rational thinkers. Well, that's given our propagandist media, for-profit media organizations, and our K through 12 and our entertainers virtue signaling nonstop, you don't have an informed public anymore. It would blow you guys away if you guys just walk around your town asking civics questions or history questions, truly how ignorant most Americans are on this stuff. It would, especially 25-year-olds and younger, it would blow you away how ignorant they are.
Yeah, I saw a meme the other day, and it was I can't quote it, but it went something to the effect of, Schumer named out all these people that oppose everything that's good for America that are in Congress and Senate and all this stuff. Their years of service, 30 years, 20 years, 33 years, 40 years, they've been in there a long time. And now President Trump's been in there just over 3 years, and everything that's wrong with the world is or with America is his problem. And it's like, how can it be his problem? He's been in there 3 years. You've been in there 33 years. Why all of a sudden, now that you're going to run for president, are you going to fix this shit that you haven't fixed in the last 33 years? You've had 33 years to fix the stuff and you haven't done it. So now you're claiming, I'm going to fix it.
It goes back to his comment about corruption and term limits. Yeah. Again, the founders, if you guys go back to the Federalist Papers and some really good rebuttals from the anti-Federalist Papers, the idea was the public is going to be informed, and they're going to be so close to their candidates that they're going to know if someone's corrupt or not, and they're going to vote for someone in their own district. That was how the intention was. Well, as we all know, that didn't work out so well because there's a lot of propaganda involved with this. Like, you turn on like some of these for-profit organizations, we're on YouTube, so I don't want to say who, and you see some of the misinformation, especially about Iran, that's been coming out. And it's like the public, they don't really think in terms of like going back to the originalist constitutionalists, and they don't go back to like history, and they don't even go further back, like when Plato wrote about the ills of democracy and just the Roman Republic, and they don't know any of this stuff. So whatever these for-profit globalist news organizations say, they just kind of swallow it like a movie, like when they're going to the movies or something. They look at CNN like it's I should have said that, but they look at some of these organizations like it's absolute fact and it cannot be challenged. Like it just blows me away.
The stuff that my kids are telling me, that teachers are telling them, is shit makes her disgusted. They tell them Trump's a horrible person. So this is the other half of me. This is the pretty half of me. So I can tell you that the conversations that we have at the dinner table sometimes they're alarming, because the kids come home. I know exactly what she's talking about because we sit through it. The kids come home and they have misguided ideas, and they're chanting Bloomberg, and their heads are getting so screwed up at school. Man, it makes you not even want to send your kids to public school anymore.
Yeah, it's bad, man. It's bad.
The kid shouldn't be coming home with any idea of who Mike Bloomberg is and how bad Trump is. That's not what school's for. That's not what we send those kids to school for. I know we're kind of getting away from the wall, but it'll all tie in.
It all comes together. It's all part of it. It's all part. Like you can't just talk about a structure, a barrier between two countries without talking about the people in it.
I agree with her.
Like, you have to talk about the people. But like, okay, I'm an Uber driver part-time. I pick up this lady. I guess her car broke down. She has 2 daughters. They take it for the homework. They had a piece of homework. I almost took a picture and put it on Facebook where it had socialism, everyone holding their hands around a big bag of money. Yeah. And then it had capitalism with a big fat guy with a big bag of money and everyone on their hands and knees, like starving. I'm like, this is what they're, yes, in Texas, this isn't New York or California. I said to her, you need to go way above the principal here. I said, you need to go to the school board. You need to go to the superintendent. I said, this type of stuff is pure propaganda.
Right.
Socialism had a bunch of people holding hands around a money bag, like they're doing, like, I don't know what they call that dance where they're all like shaking their arms or doing some kind of dance. Whereas capitalism, they had one big fat, like you see his tummy roll over his stomach. He had a cigar in his mouth with a big money bag behind him, and then there was all these other people on the ground, like on their hands and knees, like dogs, like just like looking for crumbs on the ground. I'm like, dude, and these are young kids that are being taught this, like fifth, sixth grade and stuff. I'm like, this is criminal right here what they're teaching these kids.
It is,
like,
and it's horrible.
Socialism has failed everywhere it's been. And for all you guys who want to tell me, oh, they have socialism in the Nordic countries, that's not real socialism, okay? That's not real socialism. That is capitalism with a higher taxation that redistributes. That is not pure socialism. Denmark and Norway and Sweden, there's more billionaires per capita in Sweden than anywhere in the world. So I don't want to hear any crap about how, oh, socialism in Europe works, therefore it should be all throughout all throughout the world. No, that's not real socialism. Socialism is what ends up with Venezuela. Even Karl Marx, and he even admits socialism sort of like the impetus to get communism going. You can't get communism, or I should say Marxism going. You can't get it going without socialism, because socialism has a pretty face on the front for the ugliness in the back. Anyway, with the K through 12s, it is horrible what they're teaching these kids. I mean, just horrible. Like what they teach about the Native Americans, how we hunted them down. It was genocide. That is not, disease wiped them out. Disease and other tribes wiped each other out. It wasn't Europeans that came over there and wiped them out. That is so wrong.
No, but that's what they're teaching.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, we live in Nevada, and on top of that, we live in Clark County. So we're doomed. God. We're doomed over here, you know.
You got Common Core. And Common Core was meant to be an indoctrination program.
Yeah.
Their math is really good. Common Core's math is actually decent, I've been told, but everything else that Common Core is involved with, that's global. That's basically globalist education. That's not American nationalist education. That is globalism right there at its best.
It's decent, I guess, until they bring it home and need your help, and you can't figure out how to help them.
Yeah.
It's a total different world than when you and I went to school.
Oh yeah. Well, that's why I do try to
help your kids anymore. It's hard.
It's hard, man. It's very, very difficult. It's very difficult.
And then they have to show, the kids were telling me they have to do everything on paper, and they have to show exactly how they got the answer they got, and they have to do it the way that they're being taught to do it. They can't get the answer any other way. It's stupid. It's crazy. It's like
overkill. Well, what that is,
you can't step outside of the box. You're
exactly. It's about groupthink. They're saying, oh, if you got your source from Fox News, they're a bunch of Nazis over there. You need to cite. That's exactly how they're training these kids. They're training them to be a bunch of NPCs. They're training them to be a bunch of automatons. CNN good. Washington Examiner bad. Like they're not even teaching these kids critical thinking skills. Anyway, we're talking about the wall, guys. The reason
they don't want people to think for themselves.
Just to kind of bring it back around. We digressed a little bit. The reason why we talk about this, guys, the wall is just a barrier. That's all it is. It's a barrier. If you don't have the responsible people to preserve that culture behind that barrier, it's just a structure. Hell, they could knock it down when the next president comes in. So it doesn't even matter. It starts with the people. Think of a football team. Think of a great business organization. The people is what make it great. It's not the logo, it's not where the property is located, it's the people that make it great. And we have to focus on the populace here in order to make sure that wall serves its purpose. That's the reason we brought all this up, for those of you guys might be joining us a little late here.
Yeah, and the comment earlier from Red Life was about keeping people, not being able to keep everybody out. So here's my thoughts on it. I've got some friends that are either immigrants themselves or have a spouse that's an immigrant and is now a U.S. citizen. Those folks worked. They came here because they wanted to contribute to America and reap the benefits of living here as well and being a citizen, right? So they came here and they worked hard to get their citizenship. And man, talk about proud people. Very proud to say that they're American today. And what a day when they actually got to go and actually get their swearing in or whatever it is that they do. I'm not sure how all that works, but so proud and so happy and so excited. And they're no different than me or you. You know, I'm a natural born citizen, but they're no different at this point, and they contribute to society. They didn't come here. The people, the ones I have a problem with are the ones that come here with no intent of doing it correctly and come here with malintent. So come here to infiltrate us, cause problems, whatever, overthrow our government, overthrow our constitution, whatever it is that their goals and agendas are. Those are the people I have a problem with, and I have a big problem with them.
Yeah, they come in two forms. So in Europe, that comes in the form of stealth jihad or population jihad, where there's no violence. They just do it through the ballot box with lots of high birth population. And here in the United States, they call that reconquista, where especially here in Lubbock, they're all over the place here, where they say the reconquista folks, they're all about, look, no violence, no ill intent. We're just going to take over Texas and California and New Mexico and Arizona and Florida little by little. And then once we get the Democratic majority, we'll just take old Mexico back. We don't need to pick up a single gun. We don't need to create any violence. We're just going to do this by having lots of kids and stuff in the ballot box. The Democrats are allowing this for us. We're going to take it. And I mean, these people are straight up with me. I actually respect them. They don't lie about anything. They tell me straight from the gut, this is Mexico's old land. We're taking it back. No violence. We're just going to do it through the ballot box and the legal measures. And they're like, it's your guys' fault for offering the welfare. We couldn't. They told me straight up, it would not be possible if we didn't have the welfare state to fund all these kids. We couldn't have had all these kids. We couldn't afford all these kids if it weren't for your generous welfare state. And it's so easy to get on. These Reconquista people tell me straight up, it's so easy. The American system's the easiest system to gain. It's like, and we can just take back all these states legally through your immigration and your welfare system.
That's a fact, you know. And I read something or heard something, or I'm not sure where I got this information, but somewhere that's one of the things that President Trump's been working really hard on is taking the welfare away from those that don't deserve it. Take their income away, their food, and then they have to do things right, you know. So I think it's great because, like you said it, without that system in place, they couldn't be here.
They admit it to me. You know what I thought about doing? I feel like I'm actually on really good speaking terms with one of those guys. I should get him in for one of these podcasts so you guys can opine. He can opine and pick his brain because I'm on good terms with this dude. He's just like, look, I got no problem with you guys. This is Mexico's old land. We'd like it back. You guys go back up to, east of the Mississippi or go back up north. They said go up to Canada. We don't care. They're like, we're just going to take it back. And they're like, we tell all our people, no violence whatsoever. No violence. He calls that the non-aggression principle, where basically no aggression whatsoever. We're just going to, in his words, I'll quote, we're going to shit out a lot of kids. He says, we're going to have tons of kids and we're just going to outpopulate you and stuff the ballot box. And I said, you realize that could be considered an act of war to some people. He's like, oh, I don't care. He's like, we're taking back old Mexico. He's like, we don't have the numbers right now to do it, but we will 20, 30 years from now. And he says, we need to grow the movement. And he's
couple generations.
Go to college, and he's involved with DACA. He's involved with all these different organizations. And he told me the asylum system is a joke. He's the one giving me these cases, these far leftist judges cases ruling like these. There's like a fear. There's like some kind of legitimate fear ruling they had where if you just tell the immigration asylum people, well, I was a part of some gang in Mexico or Honduras or wherever, I'm afraid to go back because I'll get killed. They'll literally let you stay here 2 years from your court date and you can just blend in the system. And if you don't cause any crime, you got a job or whatever, they'll just let you become a citizen. And then you can have tons of kids. You can chain migrate too. So you can sponsor 30 people. Each person can sponsor 30 people, and then they can sponsor 30 people. And it's like, it's such a mess. It was never intended. When these laws were written, it was intended for freedom-seeking people, not for welfare people. But the Reconquista people are cool. They're like, "No, this is our goal, and we don't wish any violence on you guys. We're just going to take back old Mexico through the legal process. We're going to have lots of kids. We're going to vote for the left because they're the ones going to give us everything. And once Texas turns blue, there goes the nation. Give us 20 extra years. We'll just take back Mexico. You guys won't have the military power. You won't have and we'll infiltrate the government." And that's what I'm like, dude, you realize what you're telling me is an act of war? Like that's open treason. And he's just like, "I don't care." He's like, "That's our movement." He says, "The Democrats are backing us up. Every step of the way, the Democrats are backing us up." He's like, "We have political power. We have big donor power." I mean, it's like the open treason of our government allowing this to happen. It's like, but it's kind of like the EU is with immigration in the UK and Germany right now. They're all for it. They're all for this demographic replacement. I mean, the EU is pushing it so hard.
I don't have an answer for this question here. Can you see it? Do you have an answer?
Yeah, I can see it. Wasn't a Japanese leader that said America will fall without a shot being fired? Yep, he did say it was the old emperor during World War II, I believe, that said that, because they didn't want to invade the country because there was a soldier, there was a gun behind every blade of grass. But what he said, yeah, because of their generous, open immigration policy, yeah, that we'd fall from within, basically, because we're so generous with everything. See, in my opinion, Japan does it right. Now, I don't want to say like their racism's right, but I want to say they let you come there and work as a guest worker, but you're never a citizen of Japan. You're welcome to earn your money. You're welcome to live there peacefully amongst the people, but you'll never become a Japanese citizen where you can change the policies of Japan, because they know you can't give people with dissident aims political power. You can give them economic power because you're contributing to the Japanese system, but you can't give them political power because that invites a lot of gaming and invites, yeah, and he was right. He's absolutely right. No question about it. No question about it.
Huh. I was unaware of that. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. The Japanese, they had the right, and see, in China's the same way. You can't own property in China. Like our multinationals that do business in China, they have property that's owned by the Chinese state government. They are, but yet we allow the Chinese to buy land here. It is the craziest thing. But see, the problem is we have all these people, the elitists, I'll call them, to be polite. They're giving the country away. They're giving the country away. They're giving all these votes to all these illegals. And when I say illegals, there's no voter ID law in a lot of these states, so they can just stuff the ballot box. And it only takes a few years to get legal citizenship. So if they can't vote this election, they vote the next election. Then they have lots of kids. Then they chain migrate, and it's only a matter of time, guys. It's only a matter of time. And the Reconquista guys, they know it. They know it. They said it's only a matter of time. This country the government will fall in our lap. And this is what he told me. I love this guy for this. He said, "Jake, you guys have no one to import. Look all over the world. There's nowhere right-leaning." He said that is a strictly European value. He said there's nowhere you guys can go. Look all over the world. You can't bring anyone to save your country. He said, no matter what, even if the left aren't having babies, he said, they can bring leftists from all over the world. You can't bring anyone from the right. He says, the government is going to fall right in our lap. He says, give us about 30 years. The government will fall right in our lap. We don't have to do a damn thing. All because of your Democrats. They told me your Democrats are doing this for you guys, or doing it for us, but against you guys. So he's like, and I thought about that. I was like, holy hell, this dude's right. We're literally giving the country to these guys, literally giving it to them. But this dude was straight up open with me, like a straight face. He didn't flinch. The dude was based. He's like, yeah, thanks to the Democrats, we're gonna get Mexico back. He's all, we won't pick up a single shot, all because we get votes, we get welfare. Oh, and he says also the propaganda. You guys are called racist. He says we have a tremendous advantage against you guys because we can say what we want. We can use the First Amendment to its fullest and never be called racist. Where you guys get called racist, sexist, misogynist, everything. He said, I'm Hispanic. Unless it's against a black man, he says, I can use the First Amendment to its limit. He says, the best part is I wasn't even born here. He said, I was born in Monterey. He says, so if you apply the Constitution, I have more rights than you. And he says, I get scholarship preference over you. He says, I can't believe what you white people put up with. He says, that they call you people privileged. He says, look at me. I'm not an American citizen. I have more privileges than you.
That's crazy. And they know this.
But that's the thing. They know this, but this dude, he doesn't get mad or excited. I mean, the dude talks like he's a librarian. I mean, he's like, or like a banker. He just talks straight faced, and he's like, I actually feel bad for you white people. It's like full on invasion. You're not even allowed to speak about it. He's like, I can say whatever I want. I can use the First Amendment to the limit. And I'm protected. He says, you guys aren't protected. And he's just like, I genuinely feel bad for you. He says, but our interests, he says, I'm looking out for my kids and grandkids, and we're taking Mexico back. And I'm like, damn, dude.
It's crazy. It is sad. And we've sat back for how many generations and allowed this to take place, you know?
Yeah, I'm gonna ask him to come on one of these times so I don't have to like be his mouthpiece. He can speak for himself. But
that'd be great. I'd love to get him on here.
I'll ask Carlos if he wants to come on. But he's I'll have him wear his like Reconquista shirt. It'll like show like it's kind of cool. You get like the whole map of the United States. It cuts all the way to about Salt Lake City, all the way to like Oregon, and that's all Mexico's whole territory. But no, they're nonviolent. They're not like Antifa, or they're not like
right.
Black Lives Matter enough. No, they're a nonviolent group. They're like, we don't protest. He says, because we only look like idiots when we act like those guys. He says, we just silently have kids, obey the law, and stuff the ballot box. And he says, I'm seeking 100% voter participation for all Hispanics. And he says, if they don't vote left, that's the longer we have to wait to get Mexico back. And I'm like, oh God, you're funny, man. He tells me his whole game plan. He has no problem with it. And he'll even tell left-leaning people, thank you, we're going to get our goal along with yours. He's like, the war's going to happen when the spoils have to be divided between, like, say, the communists, say, like, the Muslims, say, like, he said the real battle's going to happen when the left wins permanently, and the spoils are going to have to be divided amongst the Hispanics, the Muslims, the communists, because he said the left is a lot of, like, these different, it's basically a coalition of all these different interest groups, like the feminists and stuff. He says it's going to be a battle like hell once the left decides to divide the spoils. That's why he's hoping to have the demography numbers to where communism can't take over, because that's what he's worried about. He's like, we better beat communism because communism's beating us in the race right now. And I'm like, dude, I was like, this dude's awesome, man. I mean, I'm not agreeing with his politics, but he's cool because he gives me their game plan,
Don't sound like he's too shy about it.
No, he goes to Texas Tech and recruits all these. That's how I met him. He goes to Texas Tech and he recruits new Hispanics to join his political deal. It's just, dude, it's crazy because he's like, oh, he told me 66%. He's the one I got all these statistics from. 66% of all illegal immigrants are on some form of public dependence. And he said, if you or I complain about it, we're called racist. He's like, that is the greatest protection we could ever be given. He says, we're given immunity from everything. He said, that's why I say don't commit crimes. He said, that's the only way we don't get immunity. Otherwise, we get immunity no matter what we do. I'm like, wow, man.
That's crazy. Now that, I'm sitting here and my brain is just reeling. It's like, now I'm starting to understand why it is how it is for us. Like you said, no matter what we say, we're in the wrong. No matter what we do, we're in the wrong. You're racist, you're sexist, you're misogynist, you're a homophobe, you're whatever. And they take that and use that against us to further their.
But this is why immigration is such a threat. Okay, this is why I keep telling people to protect your borders is to protect your house. Look at how our immigration system was set up pre-Hart-Celler Act. For those of you guys who don't know, Hart-Celler Act was the Immigration Act of 1965. Jacob Javits, Ted Kennedy, they set together to bring in mass immigration from, well, not mass immigration, but immigration from developing third world countries, not from Europe. Because pre-1965, it was all immigration from Europe, all of it. And we were very protective of our borders. Once we had a Chinese Seclusion Act in 1896 that we had a lot of Chinese work on the railroad, but we realized the demography was starting to get out of hand. We cut that off. We said, no, if you change the demography, you change the country. And that's where whoever's running the country, they understood that. And they understood integration is key to holding us a united nation. Like, I tell everybody, if you don't believe me how united we were, listen to Nixon and John F. Kennedy have a debate. There was differences in how they seen things, but there wasn't like this mass difference like we have today. That is all due to propaganda and immigration. And I know we're kind of going off top about the wall, but people have to understand the wall is just a structure if you don't have that population. You have to have a population that understands this stuff. A wall is just a barrier. That's all it is. Bible said at the end time. The Bible says in the end time, good will be called and evil will be called good. You know, man, who knows when that's gonna arrive though? That's the question I have, Red Life, is I don't know if it's gonna happen in my lifetime. It could happen 10 years from now. I think this stuff is really going to fly off the handle once our financial system collapses from too much unfunded liabilities. If and when it fails, I think that's when we're going to start seeing all the chaos.
It seems like to me, you know, I don't study the Bible and stuff, like probably I should. But when I was a little kid and my mom drugged me to Sunday school and all that kind of stuff, you know, and they talked about the end times and the last days and all that stuff, and the predict, you know, everything's in the Bible of how it's going. And we're living those days.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
We really are. If you go back to, you know, and I can't quote scriptures or anything like that, but you go back and read those things. We're living that right now. So, you know, I guess it depends on how you believe and whatnot. But you know, it seems like to me that the times are coming. I mean, it's coming that eventually. I don't know. I don't have that answer, but I know that we're living the times of the Bible right now. So,
but like I said, we don't need tanks and guns and bombs to overthrow a country. You can overthrow a country through the immigration system, through welfare to, you know, so you can basically grow the new people, welfare, votes.
They're doing it.
Yes, and he told me, he said there's no way militarily we can match up with you guys. He said you guys haven't even fought a real war since World War II, and he says with all your advancements in technology and everything, he says there's no one that could even hold it. He says even China couldn't hold a prayer to you guys. He said, but if we can become the demography and outplace you guys in the ballot box, then we take over the ship and we control the U.S. military. And he says the only way we can do that is we stuff the ballot box. He said no one militarily can defeat you guys. He says not even close. But he says with the propaganda, the left have created such a brilliant propaganda with white people are bad and everyone else is good and everybody's equal. He said the propaganda is genius because it makes the white guy feel like he's the guilty person where everyone else is innocent. And he's like, if you look at history, he's like, there's been wars and battles and stuff everywhere. He's like all land's conquered land. He said the only difference between Mexico and here is an imaginary line. He says it's the people that make a country, not an imaginary dirt. You know, look at Japan, like Red Life mentioned. They have no natural resources. They've been consistently second and third economically all throughout the world. Meanwhile, you have a country like Russia that's chock full. Well, look at Africa. Africa is chock full of oil and diamonds and everything. They never can develop. They never can develop. I mean, that comes down to the people. It's like a sports team, like an organization. It comes down to the people. And if the people aren't educated, they don't know what the hell's going on. They can't tell the difference between a Syrian and, say, like a Japanese person in rates of criminality, their cultural beliefs, their values. If they can't tell a difference and they're told everybody's the same, men and women are exactly the same, their impulses and their survival instincts will basically be turned off. And then they can invite all these dissident enemies come in and basically open the gates of Troy, come in and sack the city. That's basically what they're doing. They're training us to open the gates of Troy to have the city sacked. And everyone knows Homer's Iliad. That's one of the oldest poetic works. All philosophies, not all philosophy, but a lot of philosophy was built on was you have a city, you protect it, but once you open the gates, I mean, your city's gone. You're gone. And it was a lot of like Jacob Javits from the 1965 Hart-Celler Act, and they had the ADL was a part of the propaganda. The Anti-Defamation League was about hate speech laws, like the majority population is not allowed to do this, not allowed to do that, not allowed to do that. They did that to create a situation where there's an unequal footing to where when the demography grows, the white, I should say white, the European indigenous culture will be smaller, and then they can have that natural advantage. And then it's group-based competition at that point. Here's the big picture. It's all designed for one world. Yes, okay. Now Red Life brings me. It's a bit conspiratorial, and I'm not going to say the actual name of it because we're on YouTube. But he's absolutely right because what they want is one big communist super state. That's what globalists want, a communist style super state, like a quasi communist super state is what they want. You ever notice why are they mass immigrating Europe right now? The same time we're doing in our country. Why do you think they're teaming up with China? Why do you think these globalist companies are teaming up with China like the way they are? They want like a quasi communist globalist super state is what they want. That's a surveillance state. But I hate to call it full blown communism, but it's more like quasi, like where they want to have a surveillance state. They'll give you like a little pod to sleep in. You're like a tax cattle on a big farm or something. That's really what they want. I'll just say it starts with a K, hashtag K. Just you can look at. I mean, I know Red Life knows what I'm talking about. It starts with a capital K, and he knows exactly what I'm talking about. And it's not Karl Marx either. He knows exactly. If there's a plan, it starts with the letter K. Because we're on YouTube, I'm not going to say it. I'll say that it's a rhyme, Bulurgi plan, but it starts with a K. And this was planned way back. Way back, this was planned. You could shut this country down by just killing debt credit cards. There would be, oh yeah, man, we're so credit dependent. I think, hey, Red Life, we're over $1 trillion in credit card debt right now. I mean, $1 trillion. Most economies aren't even that big. Switzerland, Australia, and Switzerland aren't even as big as our credit card debt in this country. And guess what? We're the host of all the credit all over the world, too. You kill credit here, you kill credit all over the world, too. I mean, he's right. You know, this Red Life guy, man, I'd like to live stream and have a chat with him. He sounds like he's a pretty sharp dude. Yeah. Lucky to have you, Red Life. Thanks for commenting, man. You're a good guy to volley back and forth with.
You're welcome to join us on live anytime you want to. Just let us know if you're interested.
Yeah, we could do a Hangouts. We could do like a Google Hangouts with him or something if he doesn't want to give away his Facebook. Like how you and or no, we have StreamYard.
He can come in here.
StreamYard. Okay.
Here, all he needs is the link that we send him. And a telephone.
Yeah, hell yeah, man.
So yeah.
So anything else, John, you're thinking of? You think there's anything we might have missed in terms of like the discussion I understand was about the wall, but we're talking about if you don't have the populace in mind to want to build a wall and protect the country we have, it's really useless to build a wall because if people are just going to invite the vandals and the barbarians in, and I hate to I'm not calling immigrants barbarians, but I am calling the people with dissident names barbarians, though. But if you're going to open the gates and just let everybody in, I mean, there's nowhere in history, guys, that's worked. Even the Roman Empire, the Roman Empire couldn't even withstand it with the Goths, and I mean, they couldn't even withstand it.
Point that I want to leave on is back to the title and the wall. And I know that President Trump catches a lot of flack for not, because the wall isn't built yet. And it is of my opinion that it's not wholly his fault.
No, it's not.
The Dems block every attempt that he makes to do anything positive for the country or to do anything that he said he would do. He's doing a lot and he's getting it done, but he's not doing it easily because he's getting a lot of flack and a lot of pressure. And I'm going to throw this up just real quick. Let me pull it up here.
Man, I really like Red Life's comments. For everyone else watching, man, I invite your
I
comments.
think he's willing to
Forth,
join us sometime. He said,
yeah,
sure.
I mean, that back and forth is really valuable because I got to mention the real origins of how we got here. I got to mention, and that's more important than talking about the actual structure and the tax funding. That the tax funding and the structure doesn't mean nothing. If you have a populace that can't repel that, I mean, it's
right. So I want to bring this up real quick because this is some of the stuff that our president fights against. He is for the American people, and I this is my thought, and I'll stick to it till the day I'm underground. But I think he was put here for a reason, and he's working on making America a better place for the American people. So this is titled Pelosi's Final Offer. We'll build the wall for a full gun ban.
Oh man,
We ain't gonna let him do a full gun ban. Hey, this is stupid. So they want our guns so bad. Why do they want our guns so bad? So that they can
super state
and control us.
Yep.
The only fight we have is to stand up and fight with our guns. They've already taken our free speech away. That's why Jake and I have to be so careful what we say on here, because YouTube any day could just end us. Facebook could do the same thing. Facebook ends Jake all the time.
Yeah.
Jake coordinates and comes back.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to read a couple paragraphs here. As the new Congress prepares to take control tomorrow, Presumptive Speaker Nancy Pelosi issued a final legislative offer to President Trump this morning. The border will be funded and built in exchange for passing a bill banning the ownership and use of all firearms in the United States by private citizens. Pelosi's edict sent shockwaves through Washington. Pelosi noted that FEMA and UN troops already mobile from Operation Jade Helm, whatever that is, are ready to begin house-by-house confiscation, and sites in the Nevada desert and Utah plains have been readied for mass weapon meltdowns and burials. You guys, you don't think they want your guns so that they can take over? You're nuts. We cannot let them have our guns. But back to the wall, since that's where we're at. This is the kind of BS that we've been facing with this whole wall this whole time. And there might be more into it, but this is a, in my opinion, this is a big part of why we don't have it. And I get tired of pulling up social media or whatever and seeing all these bashing on our president for not doing what he said and blah 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 blah. You want him to take, those who say it do want to have our guns taken away. Those of us red-blooded Americans that stand up for the freedom that we all enjoy do not want to lose our guns, because that's the only way we can fight a tyrannical government. So there you have it. That's my thoughts on the wall. I that's all I got to say about it. I just kind of wanted to leave on that note that, it hasn't been easy for our president to accomplish the good things that he's done for the country, but he has. Look at the stock market, look at the employment versus unemployment. Look at the Hispanic employment, the Black employment. Look at the jobs, period. Look at the jobs that have come back over from overseas and come back to American soil.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good things that have taken place with this kind of resistance in place. So, amen. That's all I got to say about it.
Yeah, just real quick with me, I want to let everyone know this is a good note to end on. One thing Trump has done well that's been very little talked about is changing the judiciary. Now, for those of you guys who don't understand the American system, we have a common law, like a British common law system, where we have a judiciary where you have the legislature that writes the laws, executive like Trump that enforces the laws, but you have a judiciary that interprets the laws. They go off of case history and then they decide, and that's the final say, is whatever the courts say. That's the final say. And one thing that Trump's done, he has replaced nearly half of all federal judges with conservative originalist judges. So we can actually survive a lot of crazy leftist politicians with him filling those courts with conservative originalist judges. And once Ginsburg leaves, if he gets reelected, that'll be 6 originalists he'll have on the bench of the Supreme Court. Guys, that is a titanic win for the right. We might have lost in a lot of other areas. We won a big way with those judges. And I'll end with that. We'll go to some comments after that. But that's my final note is, guys, Trump has done a magnificent job with judges.
Mr. Wildbeard, thank you for that comment, and thanks for joining us. Appreciate you, man. I will have to look that up because apparently if I had heard about it, my old asses forgot. So you know anything about that?
So Jade Helm was a multi-state military exercise in 2015 around. I'll have to look that up. I'm not aware of that. Now I'm a little embarrassed because I live in Texas. I should know that, but that's something I'll go back to. I'll take a look at that. Thank you, Jason, for sharing that with us. I appreciate that, man. I'll look that up and I'll verse myself on it.
All right, guys, my hot wings are getting cold. I'm going to check on out of here.
Yeah.
She come out about a half hour ago and said my wings were here. So
yeah. And I want to end a black pill. I want to end a black pill talk with a good notes with the judges. So I'm done.
Yep. In all seriousness, thank you guys for joining us. Thanks for the input. That really helps make this show a lot better for everybody when we get a diverse contribution, when we get contribution from everybody instead of just mine or Jacob's views or whatever. So that's cool. And as I said earlier, we're open to having any guest on that wants to come in. And Mr. Red Life, get a hold of me through YouTube if you're interested, and I'll get you my information and we'll put you on the show at some point. And Jacob's got somebody he wants to bring on at some point. So keep watching, folks. We're going to make this as interesting as we can for you and as informative and educational. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, guys. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. God bless America.
God bless America. Night, y'all.
Night.